These are the comments three women, all victims of Simon Leviev, aka Shimon Hayut, aka the Tinder Swindler, received after they shared with the world their traumatic dating experience. Maybe that you've recognized yourself in those comments because, let's be real, we all judged these women mainly because of their perceived poor choices. Even I wondered why anyone with common sense would give their credit card to an almost complete stranger. But let's be honest, it is not the first situation where the guilty one or the accusé can get away with murder easily because we are too focused on blaming the victim. It might be deeper than that, like a bad habit that we have. Did you notice that we almost immediately blame a victim without a proper understanding of why one finds itself in a situation like this? And somehow I can feel that deep down inside there is a motivation to this behavior. The Tinder Swindler is a Netflix documentary directed by Felicity Morris and relates how Shimon Hayut, also known as Simon Leviev, a so-called Israeli billionaire who pretends to be the heir of a diamond empire, managed to trick multiple women met on Tinder into giving him millions of dollars. We take the perspective of several women whose heart and wallet were hit by Hayat. And as spectators, we learn as the film goes on that basically these men always used the same strategy with all his victims. First, Hayat, pretending to be Leviev, spent without counting for these women, with stays in five-star hotels and trips by private jets, but also with his romantic gestures and by being attentionate, so they can feel like they are living a true fairy tale. After a few weeks, he asked them to send him money because of a dangerous situation he claimed to have found himself in, sending a photo of his shirt covered in blood and
I won't be
saying,
able to make it because my enemies are after me.
So at the end of the documentary, the three women that chose to speak out expressed that they were conned out thousands of dollars and have never been repaid since, remaining in debt to this day. Hayut stole in total an estimated amount of 10 million from his victims and was finally convicted of fraud, theft and forgery and sentenced to 15 months in prison, but following only 5 months of jail time, he was released on good behavior. Can you believe that? And that's it. It's over. So it's funny how the two sides' current situation reflects the general public response towards them. One side is literally still enjoying his life and nobody really care for him. He kinda became a meme, basically. Meanwhile, the other side have been left allegedly either in debt, depressed, or destroyed mentally, are getting the meanest comments and all the backlash. There's this idea that if the victim is suffering, it's because they deserve it. So they have to assume the consequences of, well, what they went through. And people will oftentimes try to rationalize by mentioning every single way how they benefited from the situation, omitting the potential trauma and damages it may have caused. And studies found that victims of sexual assaults were sometimes blamed for the assaults against them. The victim's actions were actually not the only elements implied in the so called perpetrator blame, but so were some stable characteristics like the gender or the personality. If someone were sexually assaulted, it's because of their attitude and the way they dressed. This whole mindset is the essence of the just world theory. This theory explains the tendency to believe that we live in a just world where everyone gets what they deserve. Bad things happen to bad people and vice versa. So we look for reasons to explain the injustice, and this rationalization misleads us to blame the victim even when they couldn't have any control over what happened to them. Let's talk about our own mental bias. The optimism bias makes us believe that bad things only happen to
There are many
others.
things I would have done differently were I the girl in the Tinder Swindler, and I'm just going to go through them. First one, I wouldn't have gotten that jet because literally that's how people die. Like, literally, you would get on a private jet with somebody you've only met once for like an hour coffee, and your body will end up in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. Like, I don't understand how that thought didn't cross your mind, but first things first, that's the first red flag. I'm not getting on that motherfucking jet. If you really like me all that, I'm all that lit, I'm this, that, and the third, you can get your jet right the way back.
People in general have difficulty adopting others' perspective. We will feel like we have a sense of awareness that we have to take our own responsibility to avoid them. With unknown situations like this one specifically, the lack of experience might increase the optimism, leading us to think that we are less likely to get into this mess. More generally, we are more inclined to be objective towards others and what they should do in a certain situation than we are for our own lives. As writer and PhD graduate in psychology Maria Konnikova said in her book The Confidence Game, where she explores the mind of a con artist, what we fail to understand is that we are not more safe from being conned because of our academic intelligence. Con artists and swindlers depend on human psychology to manipulate victims into trusting them when they're vulnerable. It is more so a matter of character and weaknesses. These con artists mastered the art of finding weaknesses in people, and this is also why they carefully choose their victims. So, what is my personal take on all of this? My point of view is that knowing all these settings, I can't put the blame on the victims because, well, they were victims. So let's not forget that the man is a professional and undeniably a very good manipulator. But yeah, some predictors definitely push you to fall for it. One woman explained in the beginning of the documentary how she wanted to live a fairy tale and basically find her prince charming. And this trait literally makes you a target because you will be blinded by that, and there's empirical evidence that those with a tendency to romantic idealization and higher impulsivity are more likely to become a victim to a love fraud. And something we've also neglected with this case is the lack of men on dating apps with those highly desired traits. And the Tinder swindler low-key have it all. He low-key seemed to be the most eligible bachelor out there. It was even too good to be true, which probably set him even more apart from his counterparts. Let's be aware of the victim blaming tendency that we all have. It is not to say that in some cases like this one, there's really nothing those victims could have done to prevent the scam from happening, like not giving the men money. But again, because we have no clue of whether or not we would have some discernment in this situation, let's learn from these experiences and be more aware and responsible and find ways to protect ourselves better, even though in some cases, becoming the victim is unfortunately more inevitable. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I see you in the next one.